in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And as you all know, the pandemic which we have faced for last 1 year was the COVID pandemic. But now a new thing has come that is called black fungus. So today our topic is black fungus. But before I will go to main topic, I would like to inform you today the world is observing World No Tobacco Day. World No Tobacco Day is observed around the world every year on 31st May. This yearly celebration informs the public on the dangers of using tobacco, the business practices of tobacco companies, what the World Health Organization WHO is doing to fight against the use of tobacco, and what people around the world can do to claim their rights to health and healthy living and to protect future generations. The member states of the WHO created World No Tobacco Day in 1987 to draw global attention to the tobacco epidemic and the preventable death and disease it causes. The day is further intended to draw attention to the widespread prevalence of tobacco use and to negative health effects, which currently lead to more than 8 million deaths each year worldwide, including 1.2 million are the results of non-smokers being exposed to second-hand smoke. Media conference with Lal Goyal hopes that more and more awareness about the ill effects of tobacco will be created so that many lives can be saved. Now coming to the main topic, that is black fungus. COVID-19 associated mucormycosis, commonly referred to as black fungus, is the association of mucormycosis and aggressive fungal infection with COVID-19. It has been reported around the nose, eyes, and brain, a clinical manifestation sometimes referred to as rhino-orbital cerebral ROC mucormycosis. The condition does not spread person to person and it is not contagious. Reports of COVID-associated mucormycosis have generally been rare. A review of the medical literature traced 8 cases reported around the world by 9th January 2021. I cannot vouch it because I am not sure, but as per the search what I have done, there's only 8 cases, but I think our experts will be able to tell when their chance will come. In these reports, the most common risk factor for mucormycosis was diabetes. Most cases presented during hospitalization, often 10 to 14 days after admission, and all but one of the affected people died. Early aggressive treatment is considered essential. It has been estimated that between 40% and 80% of the people who contract any form of mucormycosis die from the disease, depending on the site of infection and underlying health conditions. COVID-associated mucormycosis has especially affected people in India and surrounding countries like Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The association also appeared in Russia, Chile, and Iran. One explanation for why the association has surfaced remarkably in India is high rates of COVID infection and high rates of diabetes. In May 2021, the Indian Council of Medical Research issued guidelines for recognizing and treating COVID-associated mucormycosis. Due to its rapidly growing number of cases, the government of Rajasthan declared it an epidemic on 19th May 2021. Along with the Rajasthan government, the government of Haryana, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Gujarat, and Bihar have also now declared this an epidemic. Mucormycosis is a very rare infection. It is caused by exposure to mucor mold, which is commonly found in soil, plant, manure, and decaying fruits and vegetables. It is ubiquitous and found in soil and air and even in the nose and mucus of healthy people. It affects the sinuses, the brain, and the lungs and can be life-threatening in diabetic or severely immunocompromised individuals such as cancer patients or people with HIV or AIDS. The fungus present in the soil and air infects the respiratory tract, brain, and sinuses, sometimes causing a bloody nose, swelling in the eye, and loss of vision, among other maladies. Although the disease is not new, doctors are reporting many more cases than they ordinarily see. Certain sets of the population and situation make people more vulnerable to this infection, which includes people with uncontrolled diabetes, immunosuppression by steroids, prolonged ICU stay, comorbidities after transplant, or malignancies, etc. Mucormycosis can be triggered in humans by the use of steroids, a life-saving treatment which is for moderate to serious COVID cases. While steroids reduce inflammation in the lungs, it also reduces the overall immune response and significantly increases the sugar levels in both diabetics and non-diabetic COVID patients. This is especially challenging for people with hyperglycemia who are unable to manage sugar levels during COVID. Presentation of two types of mucormycosis have been commonly observed with COVID-19 patients, whether active, recovering, or post-discharge. This includes rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis, ROCM, and pulmonary mucormycosis. The timeline of presentation of symptoms depends on the glycemic status, comorbidities, and steroid usage of the patient. The prognosis of the infection is quite rapid. Hence, by the time a patient realizes their symptoms, the disease has already invaded the patient's organs. Suspicion of mucormycosis must remain high in the vulnerable population. In simple words, ROCM means the mucormycosis in which the fungus affects the nose, eyes, and brain. This disease originates from the nose and rapidly spreads along the sinus passage to infect the orbit, bone cavity which surrounds the eye and brain. Hence, the infection can be classified into three stages. In the initial stage, the patient will experience either nasal blockage or congestion, nasal discharge, bloody or brown-black, and localized pain inside the nose. The patient will then start to develop facial pain, numbness, or even swelling of the face. As the infection progresses and reaches the orbit, the patient begins to experience headaches and orbital pain, which means pain in or behind the eye. Blurred or double vision with pain, vision loss in one or both eyes, partial or complete blindness can also be witnessed. Toothache, loosening of tooth located in the upper jaw, and dysfunction in jaw movement. Paresthesia or abnormal sensation in the skin such as tingling, chilling, burning, or numbness can be experienced. Patients also exhibit fever, skin lesion, and a black scar on the skin near the eyes or nose. Unstable gait, altered consciousness, and seizure indicates the spreading of the fungus to the brain. Pulmonary mucormycosis primarily affecting the lungs and respiratory system. Pulmonary mucormycosis is common among immunocompromised patients whose immune systems have lowered ability to fight infections and diseases. Patients with pulmonary mucormycosis exhibit symptoms including fever, cough, shortness of breath, and chest pain. Some individuals go through hemoptysis as well, which means coughing up blood. Respiratory symptoms worsen as the infection spreads, and patients may observe pleural effusion as well, which means fluid collection in the outer covering of lungs. If a patient exhibits symptoms of mucormycosis, it must be treated as a medical emergency and clinical diagnosis must be carried out immediately. Suspected patients should undergo appropriate radio imaging study, MRI PNS, paranasal sinuses with brain contrast study for RCOM, plain CT thorax for pulmonary mucormycosis. Mucormycosis is often caused due to uncontrolled diabetes or misuse of steroid in immunocompromised patient. Hence, the first step is to control diabetes, maintain judicious use of steroids, time, dose, and duration, and discontinue other immunomodulation drugs. The need to control hyperglycemia, high sugar levels, especially after discharge following COVID-19 treatment, is extremely crucial for both diabetic and non-diabetic. Mucormycosis can be treated with a proper antifungal treatment if the condition is detected early. In most cases, surgical debridement may be eventually required to remove necrotic material on the skin. A team approach is required, which should include infectious disease specialist, microbiologist, histopathologist, intensivist, neurologist, ENT specialist, ophthalmologist, dentists, surgeons, and radiologists. Doctors say they are surprised by the severity and the frequency of this fungal infection during the second wave compared to some cases during the first wave last year. Doctors say most of their patients arrive late when they are already losing vision, and doctors have to surgically remove the eye to stop the infection from reaching the brain. In some cases, doctors in India say patients have lost their vision in both eyes. And in rare cases, doctors have to surgically remove the jawbone in order to stop the disease from spreading. An antifungal intravenous injection, which costs 3,500 rupees a dose and has to be administered every day for up to 8 weeks, is the only drug effective against the disease. One way to stall the possibility of the fungal infection was to make sure that COVID-19 patients, both in treatment and after recovery, were being administered the right dose and duration of steroids. A senior government official says there is no big outbreak, yet it is difficult to say when a growing number of cases of mucormycosis are being reported from all over the country. The strain of the virus appears to be virulent, is sending blood sugars, is soaring to very high levels. And strangely, the fungal infection is affecting a lot of young people. And as per the media reports, till yesterday, about 14,000 cases have been reported in India. Now, to discuss this very, very important, relevant topic, because people after this pandemic of COVID, when they were thinking or they were taking some relief, sigh of relief that now this COVID is going to end soon, this black fungal has come. So black fungus we have to discuss. And to discuss today's topic, we have a very, very expert panel with us. They are authority in their field. They have spent lots of time in their own fields, and they have the complete knowledge about this particular disease. So I would like to invite my first panelist, and he is Dr. C. John Panikkar. Dr. C. John Panikkar is a postgraduate in otolaryngology. He is MSc from Trivandrum Medical College, is one of the senior most practicing ENT, head and neck and cochlear implant surgeons of Kerala state. He is currently the managing director of Santhwana Hospitals Private Limited, Trivandrum. He is the honorary consultant, Sri Chitra Institute of Medical Science. He was the governing body member of AOI National from 2018 to 19. He is the executive member, Indian Society of Otology. He is the governing body member, Indian Academy of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery, IAOHNS. He was the chairman of Academy of Medical Specialists, Kerala, 2017 to 2019. He was the former chief editor of Kerala Medical Journal. Presently, he is in the editorial board member of International Journal of Noise and Health. He is regular faculty in many national and state medical conferences. He had been the organizing chair of a number of national and international conferences, including the Global Medical Summit 2011, International Conference on Noise and Health 2017, Kolkata 2018, New Delhi, and 2019, Trivandrum. He received the Best Doctor Award of Government of Kerala 2008, Distinguished Service Awards from American Association of Physicians from India, AAPI, in 2012, and AKMG USA 2010. Distinguished Alumnus Award of Trivandrum Medical College 2015. National Excellency Award of Indian Medical Association 2016. At present, he is the chairman, National Initiative for Safe Sound IMA, and the president of Trivandrum Medical College Alumni Association. Welcome, Dr. C. John Panikkar on our show. Now, I would like to know from you this black fungus, which has now coming in a very big way, very, very big way, and especially in many parts of the country. And it's such a disease which everyone is facing lots of problem, and the medicines is not available. We would like to know from you what is the reality, because it's such a new disease. For the lay people, we are not aware about, we have never heard about this disease earlier. So being an authority in this, please tell us what is black fungus. Dr. C. John Panikkar, please.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lal Goyal, for your nice introduction. Actually, this is not a new fungus at all. I did my post-graduation in Trivandrum Government Medical College in the 70s. Even at that time, we were seeing a lot of cases of mucormycosis, somewhere around 1 to 2 cases per month. So that means per year, it was around 10 to 15 cases, 10 or 20 cases. So it is not that rare. But at that time, this the so-called, actually the black fungus is not the scientific term. It is called mucormycosis, because we call it as black fungus. Some of the media all call it as black fungus, because the patient will present with a blackish area because of the dead tissues in the face. So that is why it is we in medical term we call it as gangrene, this dead tissues. So that is why it is actually the fungus is translucent, not colored or anything like that. It is this mucormycosis. Actually, initially it was called zygomycosis, like that. Now it is called mucormycosis, and this particular infection was there for decades. At that time, it was mainly affecting the people from the low economic status and those with nutritionally weak people, because their immune system at that probably would have been so weak at that time. So that is the cases we were seeing in Trivandrum, being adjacent to the southern part of the Tamil Nadu. We were getting many of the cases from that parts also, like Tinnaveli, Madura, Kanyakumari, Narwal, and all these things. But nowadays, unfortunately, and even at that time, it was seen in immunologically compromised patients. But now, unfortunately, and unlike other countries, in the second wave of the COVID pandemic in India, we are seeing a big surge in the incidence of this mucormycosis all over India. But mainly it is in the central India and the adjacent parts of the western India, northern India, eastern India, and the southern India, like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. If you ask me to name the states from southern, more than Kerala. In Kerala, so far we had around 100 cases, somewhere around 100, which is very less, whereas all India, I think it is around 14,000 so far in this particular second search. So when compared to it, Kerala is having a small number of cases only, but and also Gujarat, Rajasthan, and UP, Bihar, like that. So it is mainly centered in the central India and adjacent parts. And basically, this fungal infection is a tropical disease, because even before that, most of the infections reported were from the tropical countries, especially from India. But I don't know whether it is because of the mutations of the viruses which is transmitting in India. The immune system, this second time, it was not that much there in the first phase, but in the 2021, because of the severity or the aggressiveness of the mutations and the new viruses changing their genetic codes and all, probably it is affecting the immune system at a higher level, very severely, and that could be the reason for so much number of the mucormycosis. Actually, what I feel is there are 3 factors for a development of this fungus. This mucormycosis, actually, it is there everywhere. Even it is otherwise can be called a bread fungus. The same fungus happen coming in the bread when we keep it open. along with the many other fungus also come in the bread, like aspergillosis, yeast, everything will be there, but this is there everywhere. Mostly these are seen in organic matter, which is in especially from the plants as well as from the animal dead bodies and all. So it is there everywhere, and the spores, everyone is inhaling the spores also, but generally this is harmless unless your immune system is very, very weak. As I mentioned, in this particular COVID pandemic, this is affecting your immune system to a great degree, especially the cellular immunity. We know that there is humoral immunity by antibodies as well as by the cellular immunity. I think the cellular immunity is where it is maximum affected is the person who get the infections most. That is one thing, number one thing. Number two, see, the generally this affect only mostly the diabetic patients, especially because of the COVID pandemic. What we see is none of the lifestyle, majority of the lifestyle disease patients are not managing their lifestyle problems properly, especially the diabetes, hypertensive, cardiac patients, cancer patients. All these are because they are afraid to go to the hospitals, and they are more afraid of the COVID. So there is as an ENT surgeon, even I see a lot of diabetic patients with a blood sugar more than 300, 400 and 500 like that. So that is the situation. And when such people get a COVID, what happens is the COVID virus directly has an effect on the insulin producing cells in the pancreas, damages the cells. That is one way. Another thing is, because of the inflammation, there is a lot of steroid hormones and other adrenaline like hormones or glucagon hormones, which are actually increasing the blood sugar level in our body. And so this fungus grows when the blood sugar or tissue glucose level is high. So that is a second factor for the one. First is of course the low immunity, second is the high blood sugar level. Then third is most of these fungus, hypoxia, that is a low oxygen level tissue is required. When there is a good oxygen level, most of the fungus will not grow properly. They want hypoxic area. So actually in COVID, as you all know, there is a cytokine storm, and thereby the lung function is affected. When the lung function is affected, what happens is your blood oxygen level is low. So the tissues, especially in the bony areas, bones, in the facial bones, this oxygen level will be much, much low. So there is an anaerobic state which aggravates the condition of the infectivity of the fungus. So these three are the reasons, main reasons. There are a lot of other people, because obesity is there. What I have seen a few cases in the last 2 months, and 2-3 cases, and all these patients were obese patients with the snoring, and they all already had a poor oral hygiene. So some of the fungus infection could have been reached from the tooth. So these are all very, very important in the development of the COVID, I mean the black fungus infection, so-called black fungus infection. Now, actually the symptoms, as already I think you have enumerated most of the symptoms, but most of the black fungus infections develop 2 to 3 weeks after the first diagnosis of the COVID. So at that time, if the patient is developing again a fever, or if the patient has excruciating headache, severe headache. My patient was having fever, very high blood sugar, and excruciating headache. And then, as you mentioned, there will be swelling, redness, and numbness in the face, facial pain, and redness in the eye. Even the eyeball can swollen, and that is called a proptosis. So edema, and all these things will be there. Then one of the other symptom will be on, usually this happens only on one side, and at that time, that side there will be nasal block, nasal discharge. This nasal discharge will be either blood stained or even can be black because of the dead tissue coming out with that. And these are the usual finding. For most of the cases are rhinocerebral type, whereas probably Dr. Arvind will mention how much percentage will be the, we are not seeing the pulmonary cases. But this COVID, mucormycosis can also affect the skin also, but it is extremely rare. That usually enter through a wound or some injury like that. So these are the situations, and generally, why the not only the lung, because of the lung function there is hypoxia. Actually, because of the effect of the toxins and other reasons of the free radical formations inside the blood vessels, the endothelium, the internal lining of the blood vessels damages and develop blood clots, and that to add to the ischemia, the low oxygen level in the tissues in the body. So that also, I think, contribute to the formation of the black fungus. Anyhow, this is a very, very unfortunate thing, and the sad part is, with the best treatment, the mortality rate is around 30 to 40% with the best treatment. So that is the issue, and hopefully, what I feel is, in the coming weeks, the cases will definitely come down. Initially, there was a lot of difficulty in getting the proper medicine. Now, after the governmental interference, I think the medicines are available, and they have identified certain hospitals for the treatment of COVID, this black fungus, specifically for the black fungus, and the medicines are made available there. So I think in the next few days, few weeks, this particular issue will come down. That's what I feel. So
okay,
this is what for the timing I want to.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Panikar, for giving in details about the black fungus. And as you rightly said, that the government has started, because the media report says about 2 lakhs vial have reached to India. So if this will come, definitely we will be able to control the disease, because that is the only way if the medicines can be injected. Definitely, I will be coming to the next.
Actually, the treatment I came to, because the medicine alone won't be enough. The most of the patient will require surgery also. I think Dr. Sariga will enlighten on that part.
Okay.
And also Dr. Arvind. So I am not touching that part.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. John. But what Dr. John has said is very clearly that this is happening in those areas which are in India, especially the central, western, northern area, even the eastern area. But the main thrust is in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, UP, Delhi, those areas where the maximum number of cases have been seen and found of the black fungus. But one thing, he is confident that once the medicines will be there, and if the proper treatment and the diagnosis in time, definitely this can be stopped. Thank you very much, Dr. John Panikar, for giving your views. I will come in the next round with a question to you, so that our viewers will get the benefits of the expert advice by you. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. Arvind R. Professor Dr. Arvind is the head of the Department of Infectious Disease, Government Medical College, Thiruvananthapuram. He is the member of State Medical Board. He is the member of State Expert Committee. Professor Dr. Arvind is the member of State Rapid Response Team. He is the member of State COVID Cell, and Professor Dr. Arvind is the member of State, also the member of State AEFI Committee. Welcome, Professor Dr. Arvind, on our show. Professor Dr. Arvind, you have heard what Dr. C. John Panikar has mentioned. He has given his details, but few areas he left on you, because you are an infectious disease expert, and this being a very, very infectious disease, not in that way that it is not giving the infection to others, but otherwise. So we would like to know your views on black fungus. Professor Dr. Arvind R, please.
Good morning. Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. I will start from where John Panikar sir left off. The most intriguing aspect is, as John Panikar sir did say, we used to see mucormycosis prior to this COVID pandemic also. In 2019, that is in 2020, following the first wave in Kerala, it peaked in October. We had only, say, maximum 12,000 cases during the peak during the first wave. Our institution saw around 6 cases of post-COVID mucormycosis. Okay, but then usually we used to see around 15 to 20 cases of mucormycosis every year, say up to say 2019, because our catchment area is pretty huge. We cater to people in the belonging to the neighboring districts in Tamil Nadu, and also in the same campus we are having the central government institutes like Regional Cancer Center as well as Sri Chitra. So actually in 2020, even though we did have 6 cases of COVID-associated mucormycosis, it was below the background rate. But in 2021, now in the state, we have around say 60 confirmed cases of COVID-associated mucormycosis. When compared to the rest of India, like as you mentioned, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, this number is actually pretty less. But when we look at the background rate of the number of infections in Kerala, which we used to see till say 2020, this number is actually gradually coming up. Now we need to know whether this mucormycosis is an infection which is confined to India or the Indian subcontinent. It is actually not. But if you look at the published literature from across the world, majority of the cases are from India. But there is a difference between the mucormycosis getting reported from, say, North America or, say, Europe or other developed nations from that in Indian subcontinent. Since there is an increased number of patients who are getting treatment for hematological malignancy, for transplantation, etc., we are creating an immunosuppressed state. And that is the reason why there are more number of cases of mucormycosis in the Western world. Whereas in India, the increasing number of cases of mucormycosis has always been related to our poor glycemic control. That is, India being the capital of diabetes in the world, naturally we also became the capital of mucormycosis in the world. As John Panikkar sir did mention, ours is a hot, humid, tropical climate, means that it is ideal environment for fungus to thrive in your environment, and every day we are inhaling spores of mucormycosis. But then inhaling a spore of mucormycosis does not ensure that we will get the disease. To get any disease, we have to have 3 factors: the epidemiological triad, the agent, the host, as well as the environment. So the agent as well as the environment is there in abundance in India. So anyone can get mucormycosis if they are the susceptible host. Now, who is the susceptible host? This is the most important aspect. A susceptible host has to be an immunocompromised individual, because we are inhaling the spores, and if the spores do get into our body, our monocytes, the phagocytes, and the neutrophils are capable of devouring them and get rid of the infection. But when your immunity goes down, the clearing of the fungus, that may not be optimal, and that is when you get infection. So immunocompromised in India, the majority of the patients who develop COVID-associated mucormycosis had this uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. So in a recent meta-analysis of the 111 cases of COVID-associated mucormycosis in India clearly showed that around 85% had uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, around 76% had used steroids. So these two will contribute the major bulk of why in India COVID-associated mucormycosis is on the rise. But having said that, why the rest 15% of the patients are developing mucormycosis? Young patients are developing mucormycosis. Those who are not being exposed to steroids, those who are not diabetes, they are also developing mucormycosis. And to add on to this, we are having our neighboring countries are also having the same climate. They are having also almost the same burden of diabetes. They're also using steroids, but then they are not having the same burden of COVID-associated mucormycosis. That also has to be looked in. So definitely, COVID-associated mucormycosis is closely linked to uncontrolled diabetes. If your RBS, blood sugar levels, are more than 300, definitely there is a glucose regulator. That's a GLP. This glucose regulator protein, which is getting upregulated in your blood vessel line, which is known as the endothelium. And to the hyphae of the fungus will go and attach. And in uncontrolled diabetes, there is a situation known as a diabetic ketoacidosis, means that your pH in the blood will become acidic. So when there is an acidic pH, it is an ideal environment for the fungus to grow. And in an acidic pH, there is increased availability of iron also. This fungus requires iron for growth. So when there is acidosis, so when there is increased availability of glucose, when there is increased availability of iron, this fungus will definitely thrive. So when this fungus thrives, so it will attach to the epithelium receptors in the nasal mucosa, and that is how it gets into your sinus, this part. And if you are not diagnosing it at that stage, it will extend to the eye, and then it will extend to the brain. And definitely the rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis is the most common form which is detected in the diabetic patients. The pulmonary mucormycosis is actually is there in diabetes associated mucormycosis, which is actually relatively rare. The second aspect is usually the unscrupulous use of steroids, because we cannot blame steroids. We have been using steroids for treating so many other diseases without development of mucormycosis. Okay, so steroids have to be used at the stage of hypoxia, when the patient is breathless, when there is desaturation. Steroids are the drugs which are life-saving in COVID-19. But then the practice across India is not uniform, even though the protocols clearly mention that only those patients with moderate disease, moderate severity of COVID-19 should be put on steroids at the right dose. The right dose of steroid at the right time, at the right patient for the right duration of time is very, very important. Treating all patients with the steroids actually will invite trouble, as what is being observed across India. So when steroids are used, it will drive up the blood sugar levels. Also, steroids will bring down your immunity. So these are the two major contributing factors. Then we need to look at other practices, because the use of steroids is universal. The diabetes is also present in other parts of the world. We need to look at certain practices which are maybe more being done in India. So non-protocolized practices. So what actually prevents the fungal spores from entering your body is your integrity of the nasal mucosa. So your skin and mucosa are the ones which protect against the dangerous bacteria as well as the fungi. So usually in the nature, the fungus is kept in place by the good bacteria which are present in our body, which includes the nose also. So the unscrupulous use of antibiotics, we know COVID is a viral pneumonia. So if you are using, say, azithromycin, so which is being prescribed across India for treating COVID-19 infection, what will happen is that the bacteria in the nasal mucosa will be lost, and this bacteria is the one which is supposed to suppress the growth of the fungal spores if they come into the nasal mucosa. So by the use of antibiotics like, say, azithromycin, the good bacteria in the nose is actually lost. And the second aspect is that, so even if the bacteria is lost, the integrity of the nasal mucosa will ensure that the fungal spore won't be able to penetrate into our sinus. But what happens here is the practice of the steam inhalation. Okay, steam inhalation is actually a very, very good thing for symptomatic. If there is a nasal block, etc., the steam inhalation is pretty good. But somehow, the message which has been conveyed by many authorities is that if you are doing steam inhalation repeatedly, it can keep away, it can protect you from getting COVID-19. That is totally a false thing. Steam inhalation can never protect someone from getting COVID-19. And repeated steam inhalation will lead to minor scars or burns in the nasal mucosa. So there is no bacteria to protect you from fungus, and there is injury to your nasal mucosa by repeated steam inhalation also. So what happens is that the fungus will find it easy to get into your epithelium and through the base membrane into your endothelium as well. This alone will not ensure that you are not going to get the disease. You need to be an immunocompromised host also. So this means that why we are having increased number of cases of COVID-associated mucormycosis in India cannot be explained by the increased prevalence of diabetes or by the prevalence of the use of steroids alone. It is truly multifactorial. Then we need to look at the use of mask. So in order to prevent this COVID-associated mucormycosis from occurring, the most important thing is going for universal masking. Universal masking means that you can protect yourself from inhaling the spores. Having said that, you need to follow the mask hygiene as well as the mask etiquette. You should not be reusing the N95 mask or the triple layer mask. The cloth mask you can reuse in the right way. That is, you can actually clean your mask and then iron, and then only you should use a cloth mask. Otherwise, what will happen is that a moist or a damp mask is actually the right environment for growth of this fungi, and inadvertently you will be inhaling the spores of this thing. Another practice that we have observed is not in Kerala but in our neighboring states is that when you are using steam inhalation, they are adding turmeric, the neem leaves, as well as the clove, etc. So these are organic material. As you rightly mentioned, all the organic materials will have these fungal spores. You just put turmeric outside in a wet environment and see there will be black dots. So these black dots are nothing but the fungal spores. So if you are inhaling these spores, it means that you are creating a channel for the spores to reach your nasal mucosa. So having said this, as John Panikkar sir said, the mucormycosis being treated properly itself. So if you give the best possible treatment, the outcome is 70% may survive. The mortality is still 30%. Usually the mortality associated with COVID-associated mucormycosis is around 40 to 80%. Another aspect is the drugs which are being used, that is usually the antifungus, the liposomal amphotericin. Actually it is 50 milligram will cost 3,000 rupees and the dose is 5 to 10 mg per kg. So it is not going to be 3,000 rupees. It is going to be say, around 30,000 rupees per day. And the duration of the induction phase is going to be 3 to 6 weeks. So for 3 to 6 weeks, the patient will have to spend around say 30,000 rupees per day if you are using the safe amphotericin, that is a liposomal amphotericin. So we have the conventional or the amphotericin deoxycholate, which costs around 300 rupees per day, but it is a bit more nephrotoxic. So the duration of treatment, induction is going to be 3 to 6 weeks, followed by a maintenance treatment, which will last around say 3 to 6 months. On top of it, we need to go for aggressive debridement. We have to remove all the devitalized tissue. That's a black tissue has to be removed. Only then the drug will be able to reach the site of infection. And most important aspect will be taking care of your glycemic status. The blood sugar levels have to be controlled. It has to be optimal. Second aspect is that if your pH is acidic, so it has to be brought back to normalcy. And acidic pH means that there is increased risk of viral replication of this fungi. So having said this, we need to focus on preventing this disease from occurring. How can a patient with COVID-19, because being in India is a risk factor for getting COVID-19. So we should be focusing on how to prevent this disease from occurring. We know that 85% of the patients in India with COVID-associated mucormycosis had uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. So we never had this much number of cases of COVID-associated mucormycosis in the first wave, because in the first wave, the number of patients that we had across India was actually much less compared to the peak in the second wave. So when your hospitals are flooded with patients, so you can see what will happen to your glycemic status. You won't get insulin injections on time, and even at home, majority of the patients don't have access to glucometers. So the COVID-19 per se can lead to alteration of the blood sugar levels. Steroid on top can make it totally uncontrollable. So all the diabetic patients should ensure that their blood glucose level is within the maintainable, within the control range. That is, the fasting should be around 110 and the postprandial should not be more than 200. So this has to be ensured. That is the best way in which we can actually protect yourself from getting mucormycosis. So all the diabetic patients, if you are getting COVID-19, or the diabetic patients who are living in India, should ensure that their blood sugar levels are in control. The second aspect is that the steroid should be used only under the supervision of a doctor. That is, without a doctor's prescription, you should not be using steroids. The third aspect is that the diabetic patients and other immunocompromised patients, like say post-transplant, those on chemotherapy, dialysis, etc., they should not be visiting construction sites, etc. So if the construction sites means it will be full of fungal spores, and they should practice uniform masking, and the mask hygiene and mask etiquette they should be using properly. They should not be using any damp mask. The fourth aspect is that ideally, a diabetic patient with COVID-19 should never be in home care. They should get admitted so that their glycemic status can be optimized, especially if they are put on steroids. The fifth aspect is that unnecessary use of antibiotics. You should know that for a viral fever, the antibiotics are not going to work. Antibiotics have a role only if there is a bacterial superinfection, which won't occur from the day one. It can occur maybe after day 10, if there are evidence of, say, a recurrence of fever with, say, a yellow sputum, etc. So antibiotics are going to be more harmful. The sixth aspect is that the steam inhalation for symptom relief, it is good, but then an uncontrolled diabetic patient, an immunocompromised patient should actually refrain from doing repeated steam inhalation, which can damage your nasal mucosa. And the next aspect is, it is not yet proven, the use of zinc across India. So zinc and vitamin C, which is widely prescribed in India, as multiple studies published in JAMA, etc., have shown that the vitamins cannot prevent you from getting COVID-19. Vitamins cannot prevent the progression of the disease. Vitamins actually, that does not bring down the severity of the COVID-19 also. So what will happen if zinc is being used? Majority of the fungi require zinc for their growth. So just like iron, even though it is not conclusively proved, the fungi has something known as the syncophore, which it uses to go in search of these zinc molecules. Okay, and we are actually providing zinc to it on a platter. We are using a drug with no benefit in COVID-19 and which might help in the growth of fungus, even though it is not conclusively proved. The one thing we need to keep in mind is that, as far as Kerala is concerned, 96% of the patients of COVID-19 are having mild symptoms only. They do not require any treatment at all. They do not require antibiotic. They do not require vitamins. They do not require steam inhalation, nothing. What they require is monitoring at home, monitoring for the red flag signs. our ability as doctors is to identify the rest 4% who will require treatment from hospitals. The rest 96% is better to leave them without any treatment modality at all. And another aspect for the diabetic patients is the indirect sugar they consume. There are so many drugs which are available in the Indian market, like the preventive pills which are full of sugar, then the cough syrups they will be taking for cough which will be full of sugar, the immuno boosters like say Chyawanprash and the honey, etc. They also contain sugars. There is no harm in taking this, but you should ensure that your blood sugar levels are within the controlled limits. So rather than getting the disease and getting treatment, always our aim must be to prevent mucormycosis from occurring. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind, for giving your views in details. And I'm sure today what you have said is very, very enlightening to all our viewers. I would just like to highlight few of the things which he has mentioned, which are very, very important as far as the public is concerned. One is he says about the steam inhalation, because it was in the social media, it's especially the WhatsApp University, which was saying every time that one should go for the steam inhalation at least 4 or 5 or 6 times a day to prevent the COVID. And many, even I will say, I will not name, but many of the, even the ministers have mentioned this thing officially, the politicians have mentioned, leaders, which is according to what Dr. Arvind says, that kills the resistance power in the nasal, and that's why the fungus can go and fungus can impact. Secondly, he says putting the turmeric or clove is again, we are inviting more fungus to us, because he said if you put the turmeric outside in the water and you will see the black spots. Yes, it is. I think everyone in the house has also experienced that. Is nothing but fungus according to him. Then he mentioned about the antibiotic like erythromycin, etc. People just have some fever or cold, etc. They used to go for the erythromycin. But what he says that is also very, very risky. Mask, because mask in India especially, people are not wearing the mask like surgical mask or because N95 is basically for the medical people. But cloth masks, now they says that the cloth mask is not good because it's not going to prevent the if you are washing it, it has to be washed, but it has to be dry, because if it will be wet, then it will again be a field for the fungus virus. Then he has mentioned one more thing is about the cost of the drugs, which I was just calculating. Please correct me if I'm not wrong. It works out to be about 25 to 30 lakhs rupees per patient. Is it correct, doctor? You said 3,000 rupees per dose. And you said every day, how many doses to be given?
It will work out to be around, say, 15 lakh rupees, 15 to 20 lakhs.
So about 15 to 20 lakhs rupees is a very, very expensive thing. If, again, I am saying if the patient gets the medicine on the rate, the retail price, which I'm sure everybody knows that it is not at all available on the retail price at all, which we are seeing in the media every day. That is one aspect. Then he says those who are having diabetes or those who are having any signs of the COVID, or those, they should try to avoid going to construction site. Or in my opinion, I think Dr. Arvind will correct me, anywhere where is a ponds or such type of thing where the infection chances are more. Is it correct, Dr. Arvind? One should avoid the water bodies so stable, not the running water body, those who are like ponds, etc.
The thing is that, no, since it is present everywhere, onus has to be on universal masking. Why we mention construction sites is that so much amount of the air, the fungal spores in the air will be more in the construction sites.
Okay.
In the pond and all, the amount of fungal spores in the air may not be high.
Okay, so basically the construction site. Then he has mentioned about the zinc and vitamin C. Last year, everywhere it was mentioned that the zinc is the best remedy for the COVID. But the research after the conducted was saying that zinc has no role. And according to him, zinc is again giving a field on the platter for the fungus. But I was talking to one of the ENT specialists. He says that the zinc, if the body is not absorbing, it passed away. So he was of the contrary view. He says that zinc has no role in this black fungus. But as Dr. Arvind has also said, there is no conclusive of studies in this still, is in the research thing. Then about the vitamin C, he says there is no role of vitamin C to stop the COVID-19. Two more things which I would like to highlight is the Chyawanprash and honey. As we know that people says to increase the immunity, please have the Chyawanprash, and they are giving the Chyawanprash to everyone, even a child or an elderly person. And the honey, they says that honey is the best. But what Dr. Arvind says that this contains sugar. One has to be very, very careful for this. Correct, Dr. Arvind, if I am
Actually, the thing is, Chyawanprash and honey are not bad things. Only thing is, no, people with diabetes mellitus, when they are consuming it, they should ensure that the blood sugar levels are in control. They may not be knowing that ideally honey should not be containing sugar, but majority of the honey available to us in India contains sugar also. So they can consume honey and this Chyawanprash, but the thing is, they should ensure that their blood sugar levels never cross 200. If they can't ensure that, better not take these things.
That is also a very contradictory things that Chyawanprash and honey is for, because honey, as we know, their media reports are that all the honey, maximum of honeys, branded honeys contain sugar, which is going to harm. So what Dr. Arvind has given the complete details, why this thing is happening, why not, what are the indications, how it can be treated, and what things we can avoid till the time the COVID is controlled, so this disease can be controlled. Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind. You have given a quite a detailed thing, so I am sure that our viewers, because it's a new thing, nobody knows about this, and I will tell you very frankly, when I was doing the research to prepare this program today, it was very difficult to get the details because it's not available even in on the Google easily. Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind, for enlightening us, all of us. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Dr. Sarika Verma. Dr. Verma is the senior ENT consultant at Gurugram. She is an ENT surgeon and allergy specialist. She runs a chain of 10 allergy dog clinics in 5 cities. She is environmental activist and founder member of Aravali Bachao. She is passionate about leaving a better earth for kids. She is also the spokesperson for Aam Aadmi Party Haryana and have been relentlessly questioning the government to improve the life of fellow Indians. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarika Verma, for joining our program today. You have heard Dr. Sarika Verma, Dr. C. John Panikkar, as well as Professor Dr. Arvind. And both have given the details about the black fungus. But as Dr. C. John Panikkar has left something which he wants you to explain, plus your own views about the black fungus, because we definitely would like to know from all the angles, including how the government is tackling the black fungus, because you have some inclination and you are being the spokesperson of Aam Aadmi Party, which is trying their best and raising the voice on the media every day. So definitely you can give the view from all the angles. So black fungus, Dr. Sarika Verma, please.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me here on the panel. You have done a very good job in researching the basics, and Dr. John, sir, has given all the vital information, and I appreciate the input from Dr. Arvind as an infectious disease specialist. So there's not very much left for me to say since most of it is covered. But first, since this show is for the general public, I want to tell you a few things. One, unlike COVID, mucormycosis or black fungus is not a new disease. It has been in vogue for several years. Even when we were medical college students, we used to see patients with very bad diabetes get admitted for surgery. And they were the patients who would stay in our ward for 2 to 3 months. So you get to know their entire family. So we have seen that this is not a new disease. It is not something that you have to panic. Arey, we had COVID, now we have black fungus. What is this happening? This is not a new disease. It is a disease that is taking place in the immunocompromised. So although I would like to add that there are 8,800 cases of mucormycosis reported from India alone, which is a huge, unprecedented amount of cases. We have spoken with the manufacturers of the drug, liposomal amphotericin B, like both Dr. John and Dr. Arvind have pointed out. But the problem in increasing the supply is that it takes 8 weeks for the sterility alone. So even if they want to increase the supply today, it will be available to us only after 2.5 months. So I'm happy that Dr. John has mentioned that 2 lakh vials have arrived, but you have to understand every patient who is admitted to the hospital is there for a long time. It is an expensive therapy, and despite the best treatment possible inside a hospital setting, half the patients will die. Many patients will lose their vision, but when the infection will cross into the brain, they are likely to die. So I know patients have this tendency to think that, "Arey, we have spent 20 lakh rupees, our patient is dead." Please accept that this is a very, very serious disease. It is a life-threatening disease, and with the best in hospital tertiary care, when your glucose, you have a endocrinologist monitoring your glucose, you have an ENT surgeon who has to do an endoscopy every 5 to 7 days after the surgery has been done. Sometimes we need to take the patient into the operation theater several times because the endarteritis, what happens with this fungus is the blood blood supply stops. They block the supply to the blood vessels. That is why the mucosa, that is the skin inside the nose and inside the eyeball, starts becoming black, and that is why you call it black fungus. The fungus is not black. Is rhizomatoid spores, and all the other spores are whitish in color, but it appears because the blackish tissue is present. That's why you call it a black fungus. Basically, endarteritis happens and the tissues start necrosing. So unless all these tissues are removed, the medicine will not reach the viable tissues, and it will not be able to save the patient. So a lot of times, for a general public, one, if you don't have diabetes, cancer, kidney disease, or you're not on any immunosuppressant medicines like methotrexate, etc., you don't have to be worried. There are a few cases where non-diabetic, non-immunocompromised patients have also reported mucormycosis, but I honestly think that this is a self-created problem. Most Indians have taken prescriptions off the internet and they have used it indiscriminately. There was even a time when Medrol tablets ran in short supply, which is such a basic drug. It's a cheap, inexpensive drug. Everybody started hoarding it. And you started taking it right, left, and center. For the second day of fever, without any CBC, without any control, these people have taken medicines. I'm telling you a personal point of view. I went to courier some medicines, and the person said, "Madam, you're a doctor. Please give me a prescription for COVID." I said, "Why? Do you have infection?" "No, if I have, I will take the medicine." I'm sorry to say, but this is a very big endemic problem in India. If you have a prescription, you will share it on WhatsApp and prescriptions go viral. A prescription is a contract between a patient and a doctor, and the doctor will take your history. They will note your age, your diabetic status, your immunity status, your symptoms, your signs, and then prescribe the medicine that is needed by you. It cannot be valid for even your family member. How are you circulating it online? I'm sorry to say, and it sounds very harsh, but that is the bitter truth. And like Dr. Arvind and Dr. John have said that, we have 9% people in India who are diabetics. That's a huge number of millions of people who are diabetic. And those patients, the chronic patients' care has been very limited for the last 15 months. They are not willing to go to hospital. Many of them are not in a position to take online prescriptions. They are hesitant to buy a glucometer and prick themselves. So their glycemic control has suffered greatly. Not only diabetics, cancer patients' therapy has suffered to a very large extent because all the hospitals were so busy in COVID, and more than 60-70% of the ICU beds were reserved for COVID. Non-COVID care for all chronic diseases has suffered in the last 15 months, but it's not Indian, all over the world. So, I mean, the disease that we used to see once or twice in a month in a normal ENT OPD, now we have 20 to 30 patients of mucormycosis being admitted in any tertiary care center. So the number is huge, and more so because after this is now 3 to 4 weeks after the COVID wave. What the government has done is they took over the control of oxygen all over the country to ensure that there is smooth distribution. The government has taken over the amphotericin B supplies from the factories directly, and they are directly monitoring and sending to all the states to ensure that there is no black marketing. All the drugs have been taken under the control of the government, and they are being supplied. And we're like in Haryana, I'm in Gurgaon. Everybody has to email it to a single point it's called amphob at haryana@gmail.com. That's the email address that has been shared with all the hospitals. And if you have a patient, you have to daily send a report and say, this is the patient, this is the requirement, and then they will send. Having said that, there is a gross shortage. So where a patient needs 8 vials, we are getting only 2 vials a day per patient. So, not only Haryana, in Delhi and multiple states, there is a gross shortage. And that is why I have for the last 10 to 12 days been raising this issue, raising red flags that the government must import because it's not possible to manufacture in such a short period. And if the medicine is not available to the patients, we will lose a lot more of them. So I'm asking first and foremost to the public, I know we've run out of time. To the public, I'm just telling you 3 things. Don't panic. This is not a new disease. Second, if you have somebody in your family who's immunocompromised, please take care that their blood sugar, etc. is controlled. Diabetics have not been going on walks because of the fear, but they have to find a solution, walk inside their building, walk inside their house, but they must walk 1 hour every day because that is directly going to help in their glycemic control. Other things are that if you get the disease, the high degree of suspicion is the key. The 4 signs are if there is a severe pain in the sinus area, severe headache, pain behind the eye, double vision, blood-stained nasal discharge in a patient who's already immunocompromised. These are specific signs that you need to visit a doctor. The first thing you do is visit an ENT doctor. If they look at the nasal mucosa and everything is fine, they will tell you to go home. If they are suspecting there's a little bit of pus, they will do an endoscopy and look for any mucus and fungus that is available. They will take a smear, send it in a saline, and if within a few hours you will get a report saying that yes, fungus is present. If there is a suspicion, the best treatment investigation is a MRI, contrast MRI of the sinuses, which sort of is confirmatory and is the final word. If there is a positive factor, you need to get admitted to the hospital, but please rest assured that even after you spend lakhs of rupees, it's possible that your patient may not survive. So please don't hit the doctors, don't break the hospitals, and don't fight with it because this is a very dangerous disease. Having said that, like Dr. Arvind and Dr. John and Mr. Goyal have been saying, wear your mask properly. We have saying it for the last 15 months. If you wear a mask covering your mouth and nose, you are not likely to get COVID. And right now, even if you're wearing a cloth mask, wear 2 layers of cloth mask. I know patients, most of you have been walking with mask at your nose, under your chin, hanging on your ear. Those are not helping you. Now that the second wave is over and it's possible a third wave is coming, first, please, whenever you get a chance, take your vaccine. Second, wear your mask properly every time you're out of the house. These are the only 2 things that are going to save you. Please follow them thoroughly. Respect science, listen to doctors, and don't do things like taking steam 7 to 10 times a day. Don't put that oils in your nose. All of these are very high in organic materials. You don't know all of the zinc and vitamins and all of that you're taking are actually going to harm you. Please listen to science and save yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Verma, for giving your views. And one thing which Dr. Verma has mentioned, which I would like to highlight for our viewers, is about the prescription. She says the prescription is a contract between the doctor and the patient, and that contract should not be breached. That is a very, very important point. While we are seeing everywhere, and whether he is a doctor or not, whether he's any profession, they are prescribing the COVID medicine. Like if you being in a political field, even the politicians are saying, do take this, take this. How the politicians can prescribe? Anyway, that I will come when I will come to the point. But what Dr. Verma has raised, again, she endorsed what our earlier panelist has said, that please don't do a quackery, don't do something which is going to harm. And one very important point she says, because this disease is a self-created disease, you have not controlled your sugar level, you have taken the medicines without proper prescription, without showing a doctor. And now if you are suffering and if you are admitted in the hospital, and if you think that your patient will be saved, it's very unlikely right now because the chances are almost 50%. And in case if the patient is not saved after spending lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of rupees, please don't break the hospital, please don't hit the doctor. That is a very, very important point. Being a civil society, we should understand that after all, doctors are working day and night to save our lives. And if any patient is dying, and this is not because the doctors has not given that disease to us, we have created the disease ourselves. And if we are going to do this tomorrow, if the doctors will not save our life, how the patients or we all will be saved? Thank you very much, Dr. Sarika Verma, for giving very good views. I'm sure today's our program is going to enlighten in many, many folds. And basically, the education is for ourselves, the society, the civil society, that what we should do. Because COVID, yes, it was unexpected thing, but this is an expected means it's a self-created. If you are not controlling your sugar, if you are taking medicines without any prescription, then it can happen. So one has to be in a very, very controlled way. Thank you very much, Dr. Verma. Now my question goes to Dr. John Parnikar. Dr. Parnikar, I agree what you all have said, but my question is again, we were diabetic capital for long, last year also. We were taking steroid last year also. We were also taking zinc last year. We were having everything. Okay, we understand that the number of cases were not this much high, but number of cases were there. Why? What was one factor? Because there are reports that last time there was no can I take you? Can I take you after this one question?
Absolutely.
Dr. Parnikar, because Dr. Sarika
Yes.
has to leave, so she wants this question. So, Dr. Sarika, can I ask a question to you then? Then I will ask Dr. Parnikar. Don't you think this is nothing but a failure of the government? Why? After all, COVID, why the second wave has come? You are saying everybody is teaching the society, to all of us, to wear masks. But you means the leaders, role models, they are not wearing the mask. We are not going to the election meetings unless you call us. We are not going to Kumbh. If you don't prepone the Kumbh from next year to this year, organize the Kumbh, which has become a super spreader, and reports have come abroad and in India also. So whose fault is this? The second wave. And because of the second wave, the shortage of oxygen, shortage of beds, shortage of everything, the hospitals, doctors were in short supply because everyone was busy for this. That's why this black fungus has come. So I blame the government or you people who are involved. You are the role model. I'm not talking the doctors. I'm talking the leaders. You are to be blamed, not the doctors or not the civil society. What do you say about this, Dr. Verma?
Sir, after something has happened, it's very easy to give the blame. But I usually prefer in going forward and doing things. Yes, in the international media, we have been shamed. India has been named. Our Prime Minister has been named personally and specifically because of all the rallies that they did. And he was very proud that there were lakhs of people and he had never seen such a large gathering before. And we had a Kumbh Mela where 94 lakh people came from all nooks and crannies. And after knowing that almost 10% of them were positive, they were not asked to wait there. They went back like missiles to each and every village in India. And if each of them has even spread it to say 40 people, that means we are probably seeing 40 crore people infected directly due to the Kumbh. So, but I don't want to get into a political discussion on a medical platform. So I will like to say that going forward, what is past is something that we cannot change. But going forward, considering the pain that every family member has seen, today also we have lost a member in our family. That's exactly where I'm going now. So we are going for the cremation. So the thing is that this time, for the first time, the second wave has hit every household, every village, every city, every building. So going forward, please do three things. One, I request the government to invest more in healthcare. We have an abysmally low 1.3% to 1.6% investment in healthcare, whereas even in the West, where 14 to 16%, and even our poor neighbors like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka spend 6% on health. India spends 1.6% of its GDP. That is shameful by any stretch of imagination. You know, in cities like Gurgaon, where we have more than 25 private corporate hospital. There is a single civil hospital with 4 beds and with the 4 functioning ICU beds and 1 ventilator for a population of 28 lakh people. So in the normal times, we were able to manage, but now going forward, considering that COVID is likely to stay for another 2 to 3 years, I request the government to invest a lot more in healthcare, and actually we should see the results. Not just giving announcement and saying 35,000 crore is going to be available for vaccination. That is what the finance minister had said in the budget in February. And when it came to procurement, the government washed their hands off and said everybody become Atmanirbhar. The states will not get vaccine at their own rates. The hospital have to fend and take global tenders. This is not the way to run a country. The state has to take, the center has to take responsibility, and they must procure vaccine for everybody. It is okay to ask people to pay. I don't mind paying. But if I can afford to pay 1,200 rupees, my staff, my maid, my driver, my mali cannot spend 2,400 rupees per person. We are talking about 80% of Indians who are living in a bracket, financial bracket of less than 20,000 rupees a month. That is why they are not taxpayers. You are expecting all those people to spend 2,400 per head. It's a family of 4. They have to spend 10,000 rupees just on vaccination. This is a pure failure. And I'm not saying what happened. Why did you do election rallies? Why did you do Kumbh? Why did you let so many people die because of oxygen shortage? But please, going forward, we must invest more. I ask all the governments to spend for vaccination. The amount of money that India loses in 1 week of lockdown is going to be able to pay for vaccination of the entire country. At the rate with which we are going, we are doing 12 lakh vaccination per day. We will take 3 years to finish this vaccination process. Just saying, giving statements that we will, by December 2021, our Prakash Javadekar sir has said that by December 2021, everybody will be vaccinated. To do that, they need to vaccinate 1 crore people per day. And the current situation is they are doing 11 lakh people per day. So it is not enough that you just keep saying. This time you have to start doing. Invest more in healthcare, vaccinate everybody, and spend on infrastructure. Ensure that everybody wear masks. The problem is, sir, within India, there are 2 Indias. There are some people like us who are, and people in our condominiums and buildings who will wear 2 masks and keep distance and not meet anybody. But when you step out 500 meters out of your house, there is a slum where there are 8 people living in 1 room. How do you expect social distancing? So you cannot expect that sense, that common sense, that application will happen in all Indians, unfortunately, despite the best public announcement. So you need to vaccinate. We have to have a mass scale vaccination like China is doing. They're doing 1.5 million vaccinations per day. So they're doing 1.5 crore vaccination per day, 15 million vaccination per day. Unless India does that, we are looking at a 3rd wave, we are looking at 4th wave, we are looking at very severe mortalities, morbidities, and diseases like mucor and all. They are opportunistic infection. They will keep coming. We don't know what further challenges will happen. I ask everybody, wear your mask, vaccinate. I ask the government to invest more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarika Verma, and we are very sorry to hear about the loss in your family. So thank you very much for giving your views, and you can now leave because as you have to go. Thank you very much, Dr. Verma. Now my question goes to Dr. Panikkar. Dr. Panikkar, sorry, I have to ask you to wait because she messaged me and she.
Absolutely all right.
So my question is very clear. When everything we were using last time, and this time only one factor, because it is, I'm not saying it has come in the media also. The factor was that we have used the industrial oxygen, which we were not using the last year because there was no scarcity of oxygen as much because the cases were less. Don't you think that can be one of the factor that industrial cylinders which were coming, they are not in that particular hygiene condition, as Dr. Arvind has mentioned, the construction site, etc. So those industrial oxygen cylinders which are coming, they are not maintained in that hygiene condition as the medical oxygen cylinders kept. What you say about that? Because there was news about that water in the oxygen cylinder that please, Dr. Panikkar.
No, actually, I don't think industrial oxygen can definitely could be one of the cause. I don't think so. Actually, I agree with Dr. Sariga what she has said, but along with that, one of the very important factors is the mutations happen to the virus. It is not the same virus we are facing in the first phase. In the 2020, the virus is slightly different. Now it is a different virus with a more virulent virus. It has got a more effect on your immune system. As I mentioned earlier, your cellular immunity in some of the persons are totally, that's what Dr. Arvind also said, even in non-diabetic patients, in youngsters also we are seeing mucormycosis. So that I think it is definitely the virus factor, and also definitely the host factor could be there, but the virus factor, the pathogen factor is also very, very important. It is now the reports have come that unfortunately, generally in a pandemic, the viral mutations slowly its effectiveness, its virulence comes down. But here, what happens is in many strains, the virulence is going up. That is one thing. Number two, regarding the oxygenation, probably as again Dr. Arvind said, it is not the industrial oxygen per se, but the high flow oxygen giving into the nose, through and the mouth and all these things. Probably it has got an effect on the, it produces the microscopic trauma in the nasal mucosa, and that could be one factor. It is not the industrial oxygen per se is the reason. So that also, because a lot of people are need oxygen in this second phase, and definitely high flow oxygen can definitely affect. And also, not only that, when you are giving high flow oxygen, one of the basic defense mechanism of the nasal mucosa is the nasociliary mechanism. That is, there is a, see, the one most important function of the nose is to filter the air, whatever we are inhaling. This filtered air, at this particular air will contain fungus spore will be there, virus will be there, pollen grains will be there, a lot of dust particles will be there. Except the dissolved particles, all the other things are filtered in the nasal mucosa, because there is a thin layer of mucus secretion. That is why we call it as a mucous membrane. And this normally, in the surface of the mucous membrane, there are small cilia-like organisms. That is called cilia. This cilia move synchronously towards the back. So any particles sticking on the mucus secretions over the nasal, the mucosa, is slowly, it is pushed backwards. Normally by 7 to 8 hours, minutes, any virus or bacteria or spore, it is not given a proper time to establish there. But what happens is, when there is a nasal block or a nasal congestion or this high flow nasal oxygen, everything is given, there will be dryness, because what happens is the mucosa dries up, and when the mucus secretion is not there, this ciliary mechanism will not work. So the virus, everything will stay there for longer time to produce the infection. So that factor is definitely there, but it is not particular to the industrial oxygen. I don't think that is right.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Panikkar, for giving your views. Now my question goes to Dr. Arvind. Dr. Arvind, there are reports in the media that intestinal gangrene is taking place. Now, is there any relation with this particular black fungus to this intestinal gangrene or not? Or if yes, then why it has not been reported in other countries also? Because if the gangrene, this thing is taking, or what are your views about this intestinal gangrene, whether it is related to our this black fungus or not?
Actually, we need to look at why this intestinal gangrene is occurring, because COVID-19 per se is associated with an activation of the coagulation cascade, because this receptor ACE2 is present in the endothelium and can result in micro as well as macrovascular thrombosis and can lead to ischemia in any organ system, including the intestine. the question here is why the numbers are more. Okay, so when we look at mucormycosis or gangrene, why the numbers are more, we need to, for example, you need to look at the gangrene specimen. You need to see whether it is due to the mucormycosis, because usually the gastrointestinal mucormycosis occurs only in neonates as well as heavily immunosuppressed person. We don't see that much of intestinal gangrene or say gastrointestinal mucormycosis in diabetic per se or in patients who are on steroids. Definitely in post-transplant patients who are heavily immunosuppressed, we do see a gastrointestinal or disseminated form of mucormycosis. But then COVID-19 per se can lead to intestinal gangrene because it is associated with venous as well as arterial thrombosis. I can't comment on this because the histopathological studies on the specimen have not come out, but these two possibilities have to be kept in mind.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind. My now question goes to Dr. Panikkar. Dr. Panikkar, when this there is in the market, the media, the black fungus, yellow fungus, white fungus, are they same family of the fungus, or they are different, or they are not? Because the white fungus patient, the media report says that yesterday he passed, so he's no more. So whether that is more dangerous or the black fungus is the most dangerous?
See, the so-called black fungus, as I mentioned, is a mucormycetes. It is called mucormycetes. It's actually a filamental hyphae without any segmentation. Whereas the other one is the yellow fungus is called aspergillosis. That is also a very common fungus here in our country. Especially, it also is seen in the always seen in the bread fungus over the bread as well as in the food materials. So this is also very common. And third one is the white fungus, Candida. That is the same fungus which produces the nail infections and all these things. So these are all very common funguses, but different families. They are all different families. The thing is, generally Candida as well as the aspergillosis are not very serious unless they produce an infection inside the lungs or inside the brain, or even inside sometimes it can produce infection inside the blood vessels and inside the heart also. So it depends upon the location. But if it is the mucormycosis, generally the commonest site is, as we mentioned, it is in the nose, sinus, as well as the eye, and going into the brain. Whereas aspergillosis, usually what we see is in the ear. In the ENT practice, we see as the fungus infection inside there, which is quite generally very simple infection. We can clean it and apply an antifungal ointment, it will go off. But mucormycosis will not go like that. But as I mentioned, in very severely immunocompromised patients, the aspergilloma, this is called aspergilloma, when it becomes a ball in the lungs or any other body structure organ, then it will be a very, very serious condition. And so because of its location, not because the aspergillosis is so serious, but since it comes in the lungs, it is a very serious condition. Similarly, candidiasis also. So depending upon the location, where exactly it can, if it is in the brain, inside the brain, again, whatever the fungus, it is a very serious infection. Whatever be. Similarly, if it is in,
yes,
so that is the difference.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. John. Last question, very short time, Dr. Arvind. In last 15 days, any research are you aware is taking place in India on this black fungus or not?
I can say about Kerala, because it's not just diabetes or steroids, because we are seeing even in youngsters with mild COVID-19 who had never been in the ICUs, they are coming with COVID-associated mucormycosis. So there is multifactorial things in play. So we need to have a very good randomized control trial where the controls have to be selected pretty carefully, because diabetics in India is a huge number. 12,000 mucormycosis in diabetes cannot explain why all the diabetes are not at risk. So there are certain other factors also. So Kerala government has taken the initiative. I cannot say what is happening with ICMR. Kerala government has rolled out this study. So it is going to be a randomized control study. In the first week, we have only around 52 cases now. So we'll be collecting the details from all the hospitals in the state. Ours is a small state. It's very easy to do that. And the second phase will be looking at the case control aspect, why these patients were at increased risk of getting the disease compared to controls who had the same situation. We'll be looking at the
Okay.
steam inhalation, sync, everything we'll be looking at that. As of now,
Okay.
all the things except diabetes and steroids are speculations.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Arvind. So viewers, today you have seen the black fungus is basically created by us. Us means that because we are taking the medicines without the prescription shown to the proper doctor, or we are highly diabetic and we are not controlling the sugar level for whatsoever the reason, or we are inhaling the steam unnecessarily. We are taking so many things which are not required. You have heard everything today. I'm sure today's program is very, very enlightening. And that is why we must, if we have to save ourselves, we have to take all the precautions, consult the proper doctor. Don't go for quackery. Then only we can save. After all, this black fungus is so expensive and the chances of survival is very, very less. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday news thing. But as you know that for last one fortnight, we are doing evening program in Hindi for half an hour, where we are seeing the life of a achiever. And today, for the program of Kal Aaj aur Kal Lal Goyal ke Sang at 4:30 p.m., our chief guest is Dr. Mohammad Ismail Hajmadi, FRCP MD, Professor and Unit Chief, Department of Medicine, Kasturba Medical College, Mangalore. So please tune in today at 4:30 p.m. Thank you very much, Dr. C. John Parikar. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Arvind. And thank you, Dr. Sarika Verma, for joining us. And thank you all the viewers for joining and listening all this very, very enlightened program. Thank you very much. Thank you.